the mission statement of our program is building champions for life. And I truly mean that when I say that. To me, there's two types of programs. There's transactional and there's transformational. And we are building a transformational football program here because we want our young men to leave prepared for the rest of their lives. And so when we talk about being champions, we talk about 4 different areas: in the classroom, in the community, on the field, and then champions of our faith. And all 4 pieces are so important to what we're doing.
Welcome to the 3rd season and the last week of the January series in July. We are grateful you have chosen to spend this time with us. My name is Michael Wiltskid, and I serve as the director of the January series. Curiosity continues, and we are excited to share with you 3 compelling, engaging, and very different talks over 3 weeks this summer. The January series is grateful to our underwriters and supporters for enabling us to share these 3 events with you. Today's talk features Professor Tatko and Coach Trent Figg. Professor Tatko teaches in the chemistry and biochemistry departments here at Calvin and serves as the faculty advisor to athletics. Coach Trent Figg is the head coach of Calvin's football team, which begins play this coming fall. Their conversation covers sports and academics, character development, and provides an insight into how athletics and academics can complement each other on Calvin's campus. Welcome to week 3 of the January series in July.
I'm Chad Tatko, and I am a Calvin professor of chemistry and biochemistry. I've been at Calvin for 18 years. I also serve as the faculty athletic representative, and so I work with our student athletes inside the classroom and outside of the classroom. And I'm here today with Coach Figg.
Yeah, my name is Trent Figg. Chad's been here for 18 years. I've been here for 18 months. So I'm the head football coach. I get the privilege of being the first ever football coach at Calvin University. So such an exciting time right now for our young men, for our entire university, really for this entire campus community.
Coach, first off, welcome to Calvin.
Yeah.
I hope that you have heard that a lot of times over the last 18 months. But we are starting something that's going to be a bit of a historic year here at Calvin. And this is just an opportunity for us to learn about you, learn about the program, and kind of get the Calvin community on board with what year 1 of football is going to look like.
Yeah.
So I want to start with some questions from someone that did not play football, from the expert of Calvin football.
Yep.
So we're Division III. Like, I did a little look in, and Division I, you've got, the FCS, the FBS, and they got 130 teams in each of those 2 categories. Division II, like 160, but Division III, we're actually the biggest group. We're almost like 350 teams.
Yep.
Are we playing them all?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. No, the answer is no. But we do play on a national level. So we play in the MIAA conference, which is schools in Michigan, and Trine is just outside of Michigan. But no, we will not play all of them. At the end of the day, we are competing against all of them because we are playoff eligible year 1. And so we play 3 non-conference games, which they'll always be regional for us from a travel standpoint. And then once you get in the playoffs, you do play nationally. So we have the opportunity to play any team in the country based off of the national scheduling in the postseason. But during the regular season, we play within this region.
Now, Coach, I hear you saying playoffs, which to me sounds like, unlike bowls, unlike the Division I challenges of trying to determine who is the national champion, there's going to be a tournament at the end of the year, and there's going to be 1 team left standing.
Yeah.
I mean, how many years before that's Calvin?
Yeah, so I'll say this. I get that question a lot. Coach, how many games are we going to win this year? How are we going to be? What Calvin does, at the end of the day, what Calvin has provided for over 100 years is an opportunity for athletic excellence. When I looked at this job, I was at the University of Oregon before I came here. And when I looked at this job, one phrase kept coming to mind: commitment to excellence. And so when I look at every office on this campus, when I look at this athletic department as a whole, we've won 11 national championships. We've won over 340 conference championships. The expectation at Calvin is to be really good athletically. And so, football didn't come here to be an independent contractor. We came here to fall right in line with what Calvin Athletics has done for the last 100+ years, what Calvin University has done for so many years. And we talk to our players about being champions all the time, and one of those pillars of being a champion is champions on the field. And so we want to be as competitive as we can be day one. We'll have 112 kids on our roster this fall that are hungry and they've got a chip on their shoulder and they know they're going to be the youngest team in college football this year.
And that is an awesome amount of standard bearer responsibility for this first group.
Sure.
First of all, 112 men on the team this year. For somebody that never played football, are 11 guys on the field and 100 guys are riding the pine? What are we looking at here?
Yeah.
How many guys are playing in the game?
Right.
Why is that roster so big?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So from a roster standpoint, like you said, we'll have 112 guys on our roster. At the end of the day, 2025 will be right around 120, and that's where our roster will cap. And so from a practice standpoint, from a depth standpoint, it's really important that we have between 115 and 120 guys on our roster. So for one play at a time, there can be 11 players on the field. But we have an offense, we have a defense, we have 6 phases of special teams. And so in an ideal world, we would involve 60 to 80 players per game for sure throughout the course of the game. And then you obviously have backups, you have reserves, you have practice squad players that make up your entire roster. But it's really important that we're able to carry everyone from the size of a kicker to the size of an offensive lineman on our roster because there's so many different roles that are filled throughout the course of a game. So you have your offensive starters, you have your defensive starters, you obviously have backups on that piece of it. So there's around 50 players, 45 to 50 players. Then you've got 6 phases of special teams as well, which encompasses another 30 to 40 players.
Now, Coach, you said you've been here 18 months.
Yeah.
Are we bringing in, 120 guys that are all freshmen? Or have you been doing some work leading up to this year?
Yeah. So when I got hired, my press conference was January 18th, 2023. January 19th, I walked in my office around 6 a.m. and I looked around and I said, okay, we don't own a football. We don't own a set of shoulder pads. We don't own a helmet. We have 0 players. I'm the only staff member, so there's a lot of work to be done. But the first 90 days were all personnel driven. So we had to hire a staff, which I'm so fortunate to have the football staff that we have, and then immediately started recruiting players. And so the first place we started, which this is very unique, you couldn't do this everywhere, was right on campus. Because of the institution that Calvin University is, there were about 20 young men on campus that were really good high school football players that came to Calvin because of what Calvin is institutionally, whether they had football or not. And so 10 of those young men we invited to come be on the team. So they were our upperclassmen, right?
All right.
So we had 10 players pretty quickly. And then we brought in 50 freshmen in that first class. And so that 90 days was just packed with me sitting in people's living rooms, going to their houses, meeting high school coaches on the phone, on Zoom, traveling to meet people. And so those 50 players consisted of 41 true freshmen and then 11 transfers from other universities. So we had 10 kids from Calvin, 11 from other universities, and 41 true freshmen. That made our first class. So this fall we brought in, we had 62 players. We practiced, we trained, did everything that we would for a normal season except for play games. And then, really starting last May, we started recruiting this 2024 class, and we're bringing in 55 kids in this class as well to bring it all together. So
we'll be young.
We'll be
but
young.
We won't be green.
We will not be. We will be greenish. Is probably the best way to say that. So because of COVID, college football will be the most veteran it's ever been the fall of 2024, and we'll be the youngest team in America, which I think is really exciting. It gives our kids an unbelievable opportunity.
Well, Coach, I was there for that spring game, so
Yeah.
I don't know if they've played an official game, but we had something like 5,000 people show
Yeah.
up for that spring game,
Yeah.
so they've got at least one game day
Yeah,
experience
for
under their
sure.
belt,
Yeah. So in September we had an inter-squad scrimmage, September 30th, and there was about 5,000 people that came out. And when you talk about community and a sense of pride, that's another huge factor that drew me to Calvin. Was you just look at the sense of pride that Calvin graduates have, that Calvin students have, that Calvin student athletes have. It's unlike any place I've ever been before.
Well, Coach, I want to talk about you for a minute.
Yeah.
I want to go back to that play
Yeah.
when you were maybe a little kid
Yep.
that you thought, no, football's got something for me.
Yeah.
What was that like way back in the day moment where you could see yourself playing football for a long time?
Yeah, so when I think back to that, my high school football coach is one of the more influential people in my life. Phil Willard's his name. I see him at least once a year now, still. But, going into my freshman year of high school, I was deciding, hey, is football for me? Is football not for me? And I went to our summer camp at the University of Missouri. He took the team there every summer. And I was playing defensive back at the time. I was playing corner. And I still remember I was playing right corner. There was a play where they ran a vertical route on me, and I dove and laid out full extension and tipped the ball. And my high school coach was jumping up and down screaming, you got what it takes, you've got what it takes. And from there, I just knew, hey, this is what I was made to do. And I really haven't looked back since.
I mean, did you think, as a just about freshman in high school, that however many years later, this is going to be your daytime job?
That was always a dream of mine, but I always thought that I was going to go back to my hometown in Chillicothe, Missouri, and be the head football coach there. That was always my goal and my dream was to do that. And right when I finished playing in college, the defensive coordinator pulled me aside. He's like, hey, I really think you should try this college thing. I think you could be really good at it. And I've coached college football ever since that day. And so really fortunate I've lived in every United States time zone. I've coached at every level of college football. And I've seen it done a whole bunch of different ways. I've been really just blessed and fortunate, man. God's placed me in a ton of different leadership roles that as I look back, every one of them prepared me for this moment right here to lead Calvin football.
Now I want to follow up on that. I want to ask something about that because you were coming from Division I.
Yeah.
And coming to Calvin, this is your choice. This is your place.
Absolutely, yeah.
What I have to imagine that job advertisement had to be a little unusual.
Yeah.
Hey, Calvin, we've never played football before.
Yeah.
Why don't you leave Division I, come and start something up?
Yeah.
What drew you to this place at this time?
For sure. Yeah. So the number one thing I'll say, and I truly mean this, is I feel like God called me here 100%. So I was at the University of Oregon, and I still remember I was sitting in the offensive staff room and I received a text message from Noah Tolley, who's our provost here. And he said, hey, this is Noah Tolley, provost at Calvin University. We're doing a national search for our head football coach, and your name has come up twice. I'd never heard of Calvin before.
Right.
And I didn't respond right away. But I did. I texted him back, and I said, yeah, I'd be happy to get on the phone with you tomorrow. And so we set up a phone call, and I took the phone call not really thinking much about it, to be honest with you. We were preparing for a bowl game, and he started to explain Calvin, and initially I'm like, you know what? I'm not really interested. And the more he continued to talk, the more I'm like, I think I really need to be interested in this deal. And so that led to 3 or 4 more other phone calls, and then finally, I had 5 interviews for this job. I like to think that they interviewed me 3 times, I interviewed them twice. But man, I really felt this sense of calling that this is exactly where God had me and my family coming at this specific time. And I knew when I took the job, this was a really special place. But in the last 18 months, I've learned so much more, even about what Calvin is. And we absolutely love it here. My wife and kids love it here. Myself, I love what we're able to do with young men here, for sure.
Excellent. So I want to get into it a little bit here.
Yeah.
Everybody's been talking about football for a long time, particularly with regards to injuries.
Yeah.
Or college athletes getting paid.
Yeah.
Just that changing landscape of football. So we're playing Division III.
Yeah.
So it's not the NFL.
Right.
But at the same time, these are the young men that are putting their futures, themselves,
absolutely,
in your care.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
For sure.
For keeping them healthy.
Yep.
So that they're great, not just on the field, but in the classroom and off the field when they come into my room.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll talk about this a little bit later. But we talk to our players all the time about the mission statement of our program is building champions for life. And I truly mean that when I say that. To me, there's 2 types of programs. There's transactional and there's transformational. And we are building a transformational football program here because we want our young men to leave prepared for the rest of their lives. And so when we talk about being champions, we talk about 4 different areas: in the classroom, in the community, on the field, and then champions of our faith. And all 4 pieces are so important to what we're doing within our program here. But talking about that specifically, when I sit down with parents and we explain our program to them, I tell them, I'm going to treat your son like he's my own son. I have 3 sons of my own. And if my son is in danger, I'm going to take care of him, right? I'm going to do every single thing I can to make sure he's as safe as he can possibly be. When you look at the injury rates and the statistics within football, equipment is becoming more and more advanced, and we're allowing our kids to be as safe as they can possibly be whenever they play this game. So the helmets that we buy for them, the shoulder pads we buy for them, they're the top of the line, right? We want to put our kids in the best protective gear they can be in. And the most important piece of that is teaching our kids to tackle the right way, teaching our kids to be tackled the correct way. So it's important when we hire staff members that they're elite teachers, right? That they're teachers of young men, that they're teachers of the game, and that they're teachers of technique. So if we can tackle correctly, that takes a ton of the injury risk out of it. Make sure the young men have enough air in their helmet. That takes a ton of the risk out of it as well. And so when you look at safety as a whole, it's really, really important to me that that's done well, because I view every single one of these young men just like they're my own son. I have 3 sons. I hope all 3 of my sons come here and play, if that's what they choose to do. But I feel like the game, we're making it as safe as it's ever been before because of the technology we have, because of the ability to teach that we have.
I love that. And by the way, we're going to hold some roster spots for those.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, yeah, they're good.
All right. When I wanted to also follow up, like a little about that name, image, and likeness.
Yeah,
you
for sure.
kind of feel like that college football game, and this is more that Division I experience, but like, you feel like it has turned into a little bit of that transactional experience.
Sure. Yeah.
And I loved the way you talked about, we want Calvin to be champions for life.
Yep.
And so I almost want you to like just walk me through that thought process of.
Yeah. So the game of football, in my opinion, mirrors life very closely. You get knocked down and you have to get back up. You have to work with people. You have to communicate. It takes hard work. It takes discipline. All the things that we teach our kids for the rest of their lives, we get to teach through the game of football. And so 99% of all college football players, from the smallest college in America to Alabama, 99%, the ball goes flat for them the last time they play college football. They do not get a chance to play past college. And so 1% get a chance in the NFL, and then about 40% of those guys get cut. The average lifespan in the NFL, I think, is around 3.5 years. And so for us to have players come in here and to just focus on playing football after college is a major disservice to those young men, because they're going to do something for the rest of their lives. And so it's important to me that they get a meaningful degree. It's important to me that they're plugged in the community. It's important to me that they're a champion of their faith. So one thing that Calvin allows us to do really well is to lead with our faith, right? I tell people all the time, we have kids on our team that have maybe never seen a Bible or heard the Bible before. We have kids that are ready to lead a Bible study. We want every type of kid on our team. And when they leave, we want to make sure that we've told them the truth, right? I use the analogy all the time of, I feel like I'm like the old paper boys that used to ride their bike and throw a newspaper on your front porch. I feel like that's my job. My job is to deliver the news. I'm not supposed to write the news or be in the news, but our job as coaches is to deliver the news to our young men. And so when we leave here, I think a gauge of our success is, what do they look like 5 years, 10 years post-graduation? Are they a championship husband if they choose to get married? Are they a championship father if they choose to have kids? Are they a championship citizen? What type of boss are they? What type of, employee are they? I think that's a direct reflection of our program. And so I take a lot of pride in that. When our kids graduate, we have a chance to make a huge impression on them while they're here and to set them up for the rest of their lives.
So Coach, I got to follow up with that, because, I'm on the other side of campus. I'm in the classroom trying to prepare students for that professional side of their life.
Yep.
And yet, I got to admit, we're sharing pretty much the exact same goals.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the things that I think is underappreciated at a place like Calvin and the way that we do our athletics is that alignment of goals.
For sure.
And so I just want to echo, like, I want the same things for your student athletes that I think you want.
For sure.
And we're just coming at it from two different sides.
Right.
Where they leave here with, the diligence and the dedication to play hard.
Yep.
To work hard, and then to go out and be successful, not just as a chemist or a scientist or whatever their professional calling is, but also as a person that lives into their faith with a championship mentality.
For sure. Yeah.
That permeates everywhere. So
we do, in the off season, we call it Real World Wednesday, where we bring in, whether it's a financial planner or guest speakers or different things, just to speak into those different parts of our kids' lives as well. because we could come and we could just do football and just lift weights and thanks for playing, see you, bye, and be very transactional with it, or we could really live into that, like you said. And that's what I found with professors on campus is we want students to be their very, very best whenever they graduate. There's a reason we have a 99% placement rate. There's a reason 85% of our students do internships. And I view coaching as teaching. Our 100-yard piece of turf is the largest classroom on campus. And our job is to teach. We literally have classrooms where we teach our young men. And the first thing we teach them is when you walk in, you sit on the edge of your seat and you sit up and you make eye contact. Why? Yeah, because that's going to help us teach you football, but we're also teaching them interview skills. We're teaching them how to be the best employee or employer that they can possibly be. And we tell them that, like, guys, this isn't just for football. This isn't just, yeah, it's a byproduct. I want to win on the field in a big way. Right. And I know that those things will help them. But at the end of the day, if we can teach them those life skills, it's going to help us as a team. It's going to help them as individuals. And what I've done is I've gone across campus, and at the end of the day, this is one of the things that really drew me to this job was your department, the departments on campus, they want the exact same thing. There's other places I've been where, professors, I don't know, if he passes, fine. If he doesn't pass, that's not how it is at Calvin. I mean, I've sat in professors' offices with students and heard just the intention and the care that's given here. And that's really important to me because when I look a family in the eye and say, you should send your son to school at Calvin, I want to make sure I'm telling them the truth. I want to make sure this is a place I'll send my kids to school. And it is. It 100% is.
Now, Coach, I gotta chime in here because I gotta say, I think that you do that, but I also think your staff does it really well.
For sure.
Because I've had some of your staff come in and they've said, hey, Chad, we want our guys in your class.
Yep.
We don't want guys that don't know the plays, that don't know where they're going.
Sure.
We want them to be brilliant minds and then to use that on the field.
Yep.
So I think not only from you, but into your program, 18 months in, that's really part and parcel of what you're doing already.
Yeah.
So,
no, it's important to me. It's very important that our staff and our players are very much on the same page when it comes to that. Is they're not coming here to just play football. They're not coming here to just get a degree. They're coming here to do both. It's a very holistic experience for them.
All right, Coach, I want to look ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
And I want to think about, one of the things that I've appreciated is that I feel like we need to hold some stands
for sure.
for your alum that are 5 years out, 10 years out, and we
Yeah.
need these men to come back and just remind our current student athletes, hey, you're going to leave someday.
Yep.
But there is a whole bunch of championship life to live after
For
this
sure.
place.
Yeah.
But if you look out 5 years, 10 years, what is that moment where you are going to say, this is where I was successful?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think there's some different areas that we can look at. But, when you can look at guys, one of my favorite things to do, and this won't happen for a few years here, but whenever we have graduates, when we have Calvin football graduates, one of my favorite things to do is invite those guys back for pregame in the locker room. And if they wore number 17, they can stand beside the locker of number 17, and whoever's wearing it that day, they can tell them like, hey man, go out there and represent that jersey well. I want our guys to feel like they're leaving their jersey in a better place than what they found it, right? So from a football standpoint, I think that's huge. But then, I want to be at these guys' weddings. I want to be there whenever they have kids to see them truly living into that. And then as they become successful, business people or teachers or doctors or whatever it is they are, they come back around and they support the program. They support Calvin University.
You basically want them to go out and live that best life that they can live because at some point somebody's going to ask them, how did this happen?
Yep.
And they're going to point their way back to Calvin and Calvin football.
Yep, that is my goal, is that this is used as a vehicle for these young men to be successful, and then they can say, that program changed my life, And we have so many kids here that have been raised so well by such great parents, and they're great young men when they get here, but when they leave, how can we make them even better? How can we make them the best version of themselves? So when they leave, they say, man, that program changed my life.
Coach, I want to talk about this year.
Yeah.
2024. What day is game number 1?
Yep, September 7th, 2024, 1 o'clock p.m. We open at home at Grand Rapids Christian High School. We'll play there for 1 year, and it's going to be electric.
So we're going to have the greatest game day experience in Division III off campus for 1 year.
Yep.
So for those of us who have been at Calvin a long time, what do you want to see from the Calvin fans that are going to show up at that game?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, are we wearing maroon?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want that fans to look like?
So there's actually going to be a theme for every game. So the first game is Maroon Monsoon. I don't know if people know that yet, but now you do.
Right.
So we're dressed in maroon for that first game. We want to be loud. We want to show. We have 112 young men that have said, "Hey, I'm coming to Calvin, and I'm gonna put the team on my back, and we're gonna go play this first season." And we've got to show these guys support. They've done so much to prepare for this first game and the second game and the third game. But the first game, there's so much built into it because it's legitimately the first play ever in the history of Calvin football. So just pride, just a huge sense of pride. And I see that everywhere I go on campus, from the theater to volleyball to basketball to whatever it is that we're doing on this campus. The Calvin community shows up. So show up just like we always do. That's what I would say. Show up and support these young men. Support the university. I mean, this isn't just a football program. This is a whole university coming together. And I'm so thankful to be a part of it. As I look back, when I took the job, I knew that it was a big deal. But man, I've learned so much about how just cool this opportunity is. I mean, there's literally shirts in the library or in the bookstore that say undefeated since 1876. I mean, it's awesome.
I got one.
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, the person that really paid for this room that we're sitting in right now is a 1971 graduate that wrote his senior paper on why Calvin should have football. So
this has been a long time.
This has been a long time coming, right?
Time
so the first game's the Maroon Monsoon. Wear your maroon. Right? Be loud.
What's it going to take for us to completely exceed the capacity of Grand Rapids Christian High? Like, do we need 10,000? Like, what do we need
so that
we get people at the gates that aren't allowed to come in?
I know there's a fire code.
But we're going to find that number.
Let's push the limit. Whatever it is, let's push the limit.
Whatever it is,
so,
the Calvin Nation has got to come out, and we've got to push that limit for game one and start this season off right.
For sure. And then I would encourage, we have 4 home games this year. For every home game, do the exact same thing, right? Show these guys all the way through, show the university that this is great, And then the following year, we'll be right here on campus, and it'll be even bigger.
Well, Coach, every year I pick one game, and I give the students of organic chemistry extra credit if they go to a Calvin athletics game wearing Calvin gear. It's going to be football this year.
Absolutely.
So there's going to be, a little quiet section of the organic chemistry students.
I love it.
They'll be loud for chemists,
Absolutely.
But they will be there because this is something that's not just athletics. I think it is part of the culture and the identity of what we're trying to build here at Calvin.
And football, I very much am on the same page that football came to Calvin to very much be a part of what Calvin already is, right? To live it, because when you look at Calvin creates champions for life, right? Calvin is already champions in the classroom, on the field, in the community, champions of their faith. So those 4 things that we really live into, Calvin's already doing those very well. And so it's easy to show our student athletes, hey, do what Calvin's already doing. We don't have to do anything different. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? When you look at the athletic department here, we're winning, right, in a big way. And so Calvin, the football program, can just continue to do that.
Love it. All right, Coach, we're going to have the greatest Division III off-campus game day experience, but 2025.
Yeah.
Are we going to have the greatest
Absolutely.
Game day experience on campus?
Absolutely. When you look at the facilities at Calvin, in 2024, the soccer stadium will be done. Phenomenal. It is an incredible facility. When you put the football stadium beside the soccer stadium, our outdoor facility complex here will be, it will rival anybody in Division III, right? And then you can come inside for the volleyball game, right? And the same thing in the fall. And it's, what we're able to do and to show our kids support and to continue to build the largest classrooms on campus is such a big deal, right? To rally a campus community around a football game or a soccer game or whatever it is on a Saturday afternoon, you can't beat it. I mean, it's an atmosphere, it brings a buzz to campus that you just can't find anywhere else.
Well, there's been more than a buzz, because there's been like construction, and trucks, and diggers going on. What are we seeing on campus right now? I know that there's like that soccer stadium, and it is going to be amazing.
For sure.
And it's going to be loud.
Yep.
But I feel like there's a little bit of football action going on up there.
Yeah, so as you look at the north end zone of the football stadium, there's the football building. So outside there'll be a sign that says Calvin Football Established 2023, which is really cool. And when you walk in the front door, and that's where That's really our players' living room. So it's the locker room. So our locker room, our equipment room, our athletic training room will be out there. And so this summer they're installing the lockers, and our players move in August 13th of this year. And so the last week of July, first week of August, we'll be handed the keys to that building, and that's where our players will live. And so, there's so much to a locker room. I think some people have the thought that, oh yeah, you just go in there and you get changed and you go out to practice. So much life happens in a locker room. That's where bonds are made forever. I look back at my locker room in college. My head coach did a phenomenal job of building a network of people. And so in my small locker room at William Jewell College, where there was 1,500 students, some of my locker mates were Dan Lanning, the head coach at the University of Oregon, John Igurugu, the linebacker coach for the Giants, New York Giants, Robbie Disher, the tight end coach at Illinois, Lynn Nutt, the defensive coordinator at Pitt State. That was it's still my network of people today. And so my job is to build our young men a network, right? And in that locker room, that's where so much life happens. There's some nice, comfortable chairs for those guys to sit and hang out. But man, I wish you could see throughout the course of the day the interactions that happen in there, the life bonds, that form in there. And those guys, someday when they get married, those guys in that locker room will be the ones standing up with them, in their wedding. And so that locker room is such an important piece of what we're doing. And as you look around the football suite that we're sitting in right now, that has served as that this year, and it's been phenomenal. We have our coaches' offices, we have my office, our staff room. Then our players come in here, they study, they eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, they drink protein shakes. Just so much life happens within those walls. And so I'm so appreciative of the locker room that we're building, because it's nice. It's really nice for our players, and it shows them the support. But it also provides for them a place to really do life.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be a day we're going to have this stadium, it's going to be full of maroon, and there's going to be a moment where you're going to look back and say, even though I was a part of this, this is a work in young men's lives, at Calvin's life, that God did this?
Absolutely. I'm telling you, the things that have already happened for us, I'll never forget the night when we got our first commitment, our first high school commitment. I got a FaceTime call, and I really thought it was coming. And it was like, we're going. This is really going to happen, because, when football was launched, nobody knows who the first player is going to be to say yes, right? No one knows what those first pieces are going to look like. And I'm a firm believer that God has pulled all this together. And that's cliche to say, but I truly believe that. We literally, in our staff room every day, we pray that God will bring the right people to this program. And because of that, there's been people that have said no, right? But I'm a firm believer that, man, God's orchestrated all this. And as I even look back on my career, the different jobs I've had and the places I've lived and the people I've met and the things I've seen, at times I wonder, man, why am I doing this? Why am I going through this? Why do I have this specific job? But all of it has prepared me for this, and I just feel I'm so thankful to be here, so grateful for the support that Calvin gives, and for everyone that said yes to football to make this possible, because I think the university is starting to see this is really cool, right? This is going to be well worth the investment. And it's bringing people from all over the country. We have kids from Michigan, we have kids from Chicago, from Minnesota, from Florida, from Texas, from California, Louisiana, already coming to play football at Calvin that, maybe wouldn't have come if it wasn't for that.
Coach, I've been here 18 years, and there have been committees, there have been studies. Yeah. We've been looking at football for a long time.
For sure.
And so, I feel like I've heard some of those hard questions.
Yeah.
So let's do lightning round here.
Yeah, for sure.
And some of them I feel like are almost already answered. I've heard people aren't going to come to Calvin to play football. But I hear that we got a lot of guys coming. Has it been hard to get people to come here, or?
I'll tell you what, no. The quick answer to that is no. It's been hard work, right, to go out and to turn over rocks and to form relationships with high school coaches, because high school coaches, football coaches in the area, have never communicated with a Calvin football coach before. Right. Football's so different because there's no club football, there's no AAU football, it's just at the high school level. That's the only place you recruit from. So high school football coaches honestly haven't known much about Calvin in the area if they didn't come to Calvin. And so forging those relationships, right, and really working through that, that's been the hard work. But once people have seen it, they're like, oh yeah, we're going there to play football because we know what a great institution it is. It just doesn't have football, and I love football. I'm going to go play football, so I'm going to go somewhere else. But now it's been like, oh wow, that door's open now, so we are going to go there. So that piece has been really cool to see.
All right, second comment that I've heard, nobody's going to come watch these games.
Yeah.
First game,
Yeah.
we're going to get nobody?
So I'll say this, September 30th this year, we had an inter-squad scrimmage. We had 62 young men on our team, inter-squad scrimmage. We were not playing another team. Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock, there were over 4,000 people in the stands. They ran out of hamburgers really quickly.
All right.
I have literally people from all over the country calling me saying, how can we get tickets for the first game? So they go on sale at some point in June. I think most of them are already spoken for. It's going to be a packed house. I mean, when you look at just how every event at Calvin is attended, it's going to be fun.
Third comment, we'll never win. How long is it going to take for a win?
Yeah, so that shirt that says undefeated since 1876,
Yeah.
I'm going to wear that for as long as I
Guess we
can.
All right.
I'll say this, our players know the expectation at Calvin. There's positive peer pressure is a really good thing, right? And so when you look, our men's athletics at Calvin just won the MIAA men's trophy, right? And so don't think our players don't hear those whispers and hear that noise. Positive peer pressure is a great thing, and they don't want to let the university down. Also, football is a sport that takes a lot of time to develop. Our players are very committed to being prepared for our first game, and they're going to go out with the expectation to win our first game. Obviously, we've got to go do that. We've got to execute, and we're going to be young, but that's not an excuse, right? And so, quickly, I hope, is the answer to that question.
All right, Coach. Now, personal questions for you.
Yeah.
What do you want to see in game one? 40-yard touchdown pass or an interception returned for a 40-yard touchdown?
Dan, so our offense and defensive staff have this debate. Our offensive coordinator says all the time, Coach Dixon says, he goes, I don't know what I'm going to do if our defense scores the first ever touchdown in the history of Calvin football. Whatever side of the ball we're on first, I want to score that way first. I just want to score. I don't care how we do it. I hope we score on both sides of the ball in that first game.
All right. Well, then I got to ask, are you going to be wearing a baseball cap or are you wearing a visor to this first game?
You know what? I'm not a hat guy. So I'll probably have some sunscreen on my head.
Hey.
But you won't see me in a hat most of the time.
All right. And are we ever going to get a snowball game here in Michigan where we get a little snow and we're out there 4 inches deep slinging some guns? And
I
just
sure
like,
hope so,
yeah.
man. To me, that's what football is all about, right? The great thing about football, you start in August when it's really hot, and if you do your job really well, you're playing in the snow, which I sure hope so, quickly.
All right, Coach, I'm out of questions, but I want to ask you, at the end of the day, that hope that you're hoping for,
Yeah.
what's the thing that you're going to go to bed and you're going to say, this happened on the first day of football practice, and that's the greatest win I'm going to have, perhaps this season?
Yeah, so the number one thing with our players is what type of teammate are you, right? So this past fall, we had no players that had ever practiced at Calvin before. So our first practice was literally showing our kids, here's how you walk out to the practice field. So I can't wait this year for one of our upperclassmen to put his arm around one of the younger guys and say, hey, this is how we do it here. Because they know that this is the standard of Calvin football. So whenever we have a player walk out there and say, hey, this is how we do it at Calvin, that shows that they're understanding what the standard is.
Coach, we're looking forward to a great season. But more importantly, we're looking forward to a bunch of great young men coming out of this program that are going to be people of faith and champions, not just on the field, but everywhere.
Yeah, man, I'm so thankful to be here. I'm so excited to be a part of Knight Nation. And we're going to go represent this university really well with the right people. I appreciate all your support on the faculty side. I know that it's a huge task to educate every student on this campus, and I'm so thankful for all the time that you put in with our student athletes, with every student on campus, to help build champions for life, because that's what we're all here to do.
It's a privilege to be there.
Yep.
And Coach, we're looking forward to a lot of good years with you and a legacy being built.
We're excited.
Starting in 2024.
Go Knights!
Go Knights.
Thank you again for joining us for the January series in July, one part of the expanding January series at Calvin University. More details will be shared soon on our fall event in October and speaker lineup for January. We have some exciting guests coming to campus, and we can't wait to continue learning with you.